MC on the platform track. Welcome to the platform track and our second presentation of the day. We have Erway, who's Senior Product Manager of Magento Commerce at Adobe. He's our PWA expert, and he's going to be talking to us about the headless commerce with PWA and Magento 2.4. He's going to be talking to us for about 30 minutes, and then we will have time for Q&A after his presentation. So please use the chat box and the Q&A to submit your questions, and I will be speaking to Eric at the end of his presentation. Over to you, Eric.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So greetings from my home here, almost 5,000 miles away in Austin, Texas, the live music capital of the world. I hope everybody's doing okay. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning here in Austin, yet I'm thrilled to be here again for Meet Magento UK. I'm just especially happy to hear that we've raised over 82,000 pounds for charities. And this is just one of my favorite events of the year. So again, super thrilled to be here. We've got a lot to cover here in the next 30 minutes. So by way of introductions, my name is Eric Erway. As Stephanie has said, I'm the Senior Manager of Product Management for Magento Commerce at Adobe for merchant and shopping experiences, including PWA, B2B, and Page Builder. Been working in the web for almost 20 years, and I can't remember a more exciting time. A lot has changed in that time. The challenges, though, remain the same as we continue to push the limits of both the digital and the customer experiences. So today, we're going to cover the latest on headless commerce, PWA Studio, what it means for merchants and shoppers, and how it all comes together in August with Magento 2.4. According to Gartner, over 75% of merchants are already considering headless commerce. This year, headless commerce and PWA moves beyond the hype and becomes a must-have for merchants, partners, and developers. This session should help you understand why that's the case and how you can get started. So tomorrow came early. I, had a chance to sit in on the keynote from Peter and actually made some adjustments here based on that. And I really, really like that phrase. I like the idea of the fact that, the question that we often get from a headless PWA standpoint is when, right? It's a big change for a lot of people, but when tomorrow comes early, planning is a bit different, and it's a relative question when you think about the needs of merchants, partners, and developers. Times like these present big opportunities. As you've heard, some companies are seeing Black Friday numbers every day, including some PWA sites since the pandemic. According to April data from Adobe Analytics, U.S. e-commerce saw a 49% increase in sales. Electronics, up 58%. Grocery, 110% alone. How are these merchants prepared? If you were in the middle of a digital transformation, tomorrow indeed came early. So with that in mind, let's talk about tomorrow today and what is possible with the latest on headless and PWA Studio. So for those who are not familiar with headless commerce, it's simply put, it's about separating and decoupling commerce from the presentation, which Gartner has done a nice job defining here. It's largely a technical consideration, but for merchants, it's about the flexibility in creating those superior shopping experiences. So much like PWA Studio as a toolkit and a standard, it's also just about headless in general. We often see questions like these come up from time to time with our customers. So it's important to break these down. So we're going to walk through this so you better understand what it is, and maybe even more importantly, what it isn't, and how that's going to work on the product roadmap this year. This is not your standard Magento. So Magento for years has taken a traditional approach to architecture, much like other platforms. Our current front end with Luma is tightly coupled with code, logic, and the Magento 2 backend. It's stable, reliable, but not without limitations since it was introduced about 5 years ago. We have a robust marketplace that supports thousands of extensions that support it today. As of Magento 2.3, we introduced headless and decoupled options with GraphQL. This included a new front end, storefront, and set of development tools with PWA Studio. We needed to evolve our headless capabilities first with GraphQL to introduce PWA, even though we've been doing it for years with REST. Our PWA efforts are based on a standard, decoupled solution using capabilities like service workers, which allow us and give us the ability that's already in 94% of all devices. GraphQL gives us a modern, flexible, and efficient API that are demanded of superior experiences like PWA. As part of our PWA approach, our brand new Vennya storefront is decoupled, separating logic from the backend using the same GraphQL APIs as Headless Store. Our new Peregrine-powered UI components provide the logic and are optimized for commerce. if you haven't figured out yet, this is not just a theme. It's not even just for mobile. It's for mobile and desktop. And this will be the future front end of Magento that we've shaped from the very beginning with the feedback from our community. And as you've heard at Adobe Summit, this year, our key headless and PWA work streams will be complete for B2C and B2B, with the majority of this being completed in Magento 2.4 very soon. So with all of that in mind, where would you put yourself today with headless and PWA, including its own adoption? If you look at the classic product adoption curve, which you've shown in the past, at the moment, we are actually crossing the chasm right now. It's the point where you start to think about that next move. In the middle of early adoption, you're starting to think about what this means, and you're already starting to make plans to get started. Developers already started doing this themselves 2 years ago. Partners and now merchants are starting to catch up by ways of accelerators and other activities, even prototypes, but also thinking about things like hiring and other considerations. Implementations are starting to become more predictable and being done around the same time as a traditional Magento 2 store, and they're beginning to require less customization, which is typical as technology matures. Extensions are starting to emerge and soon can be found on the Magento marketplace, but it's still considered early. We recognize that, but in reality, nothing should be holding you back. Several agencies are leading that charge, though, again, starting with accelerators, but also thinking about PWA or headless first when it comes down to their pipeline. They're hiring again, and then they're able to thrive in this brand new world, designing experiences and creating user experiences that were also held back from traditional, maybe even templated approaches. So let's take a look at the numbers. That's always been about the Magento and Adobe communities to date and what we have. So first of all, we've got 10 stores currently using PWA Studio in production. We have countless others that are headless, some of which we find out almost every other day. We have about 200% on average performance improvements via Google Lighthouse, and that really has a lot to depend on your previous experiences, but we've seen 3 and 4 times faster sites pre-post as well. Average bounce rate, if you think about engagement as being a key performance indicator, can be seen at around a third improved. And then how we do this is a big part of our community maintainers, both Jordan and Lars, and the almost 2,000 members in our Magento community that we communicate with almost every day on a regular basis. And we meet on Fridays with our community discussions. We have over 110 community contributors to date. And then about half of our contributions also are from the Magento community. Again, this product itself and where we started over 2 years ago was built, originated, and shaped by the community. And we should all be proud of not only what we've done, but also how we've done it. So I mentioned the 10 launches that have been done using PWA Studio. These are just a handful that we've shared over time, and we continue to introduce more and more of these. Again, we continue to see a lot of the trends around conversion, engagement, and also performance, but we're also seeing some interesting indicators around efficiency as well. This is a much more efficient way to do the web. It's a much more efficient way to do storefronts. And then ultimately the customer wins. The customer is getting a much more improved mobile experience, and we're starting to push the limits on what experiences look like. You're not going to see necessarily the templatized approaches that you were seeing before. It's about pushing those limits, much like we've done and we've talked about in the past. And that's just what we're aware of the moment. We find out some of these well after the fact, and we continue to track these with a couple different community efforts to date. So resources, including extensions, themes, and other materials are available for PWA Studio today. And these are just the ones that we're aware of. As you can see, we've got a handful of extensions, themes, handbooks, and other considerations that are available right now. And these are going to be available in some form or another in the marketplace later this year. Again, this is not only a testament to what we're doing, but how we're doing it. But if you're just seeing this for the first time, this isn't brand new. We're starting to see a lot of movement in this area, and these are starting to address several of the needs of the community around things like server-side rendering when it comes to search engine optimization. It's starting to address areas like payments, which are often customized, and we're starting to close the gap again on what customization looks like. That's the benefit of a community here. When you think about extensions, themes, and resources, again, much to the credit of all the merchants, partners, and developers that were part of this. So last but not least, the analysts have recognized what we've been doing to date with PWA Studio. We talk to them pretty regularly, and it was noted recently in the Forrester Wave report. Magento and Adobe achieved for the first time the leader position in B2C and B2B. But one of the handful of callouts was actually about PWA Studio. At the moment, we are the only platform that has a complete headless and progressive headful solution. We're positioned to lower the total cost of ownership and complexity of adopting these next generation PWA experiences. Again, it's always been about experiences, but in this case, our goal is to make it available for everybody. So speaking of experiences, our CEO of Adobe, Shantanu Narayan, recently said that people buy experiences, not products. What we're doing with Headless and PWA is no different. It's much more than just a platform technology or even a buzzword or marketing trend. It's about unlocking the full potential of shopping experiences, but also for merchants, partners, and developers alike. Today's experiences can be mapped across a customer journey. Much like Peter had talked about, it's all about the customer experience. But similar to the one that you see here from Gartner, it starts all the way at the beginning at discovery, but all the way through then to fulfillment. So it's really important, though, to think about what this looks like for your store. How does this look for mobile? What are you doing about it? Can you do better? Headless and PWA continues to allow you to dramatically improve experiences in each of these phases, which we'll talk about here shortly. So in a session that's happening right now, Gilberto is talking about a brand new consideration from Google called Core Web Vitals. So when you think about measuring experiences, there's a lot of ways you can do it. You can do it both qualitative and quantitatively. Google, by way of Lighthouse and again what they've introduced with Core Web Vitals, is starting to think about what experience looks like. And again, at its basic core, it's about interactive, and it's about visual and other characteristics like performance that make up the most measurable parts about any experiences, let alone the aesthetics themselves. And one key part about this is that it is going to start affecting SEO. As you remember from Meet Magento UK last year, we started talking about mobile performance being a consideration with search ranking. Now, Google is starting to look at page experience with these considerations as well. So I encourage you to take a look at what this looks like for you. Download and take a look at Google Lighthouse and really review your site and see what some of the opportunities might be. But you'll continue to see this and really see experience as a priority. And again, as you look at some of the options that we have for both Headless and PWA Studio, we have some solutions in this area that will make that easier for you to help achieve. Engage, select, and purchase are also part of core shopping experiences. And so one of the things we'd like to introduce today is a brand new refresh of our Vennya storefront experience. If you've seen this in our community calls, this may not be news to you, but Salmia, Scott, and others in our user experience team have been hard at work applying the latest research to our Vennya reference storefront, which is going to be available throughout the year in small increments, including Magento 2.4. You can start to see this already in some of the cart and checkout improvements that'll happen in PWA Studio 7.0 next month, including some homepage and landing refreshes as well. Fulfillment, of course, is going to get interesting at some point with PWA-based push notifications when orders are placed, but also present some opportunities for in-store pickup down the road. So we're excited to launch and start to announce this. You'll see more of this in the future. But if you only think about Vennya theme and Vennya as a thing, that's really only part of the story. Again, remember, this is not just a theme. This is a brand new front end. Our UI components are really just the product itself. It's representing atomic level experiences that become part of the customer journey, from home to checkout. This is part of our Vennya style guide that continues to be in development. Again, if you follow us in community, you'll start to see this come together and be applied to our current Vennya storefront today. All right, so this can be seen with Headless. And so one of the examples you'll see here is a live one. So if you take a look at TiVo.com today, I encourage you to add something to cart. The component itself is very much similar to what you'll see in Vennya. And that's not by accident. It should look very, very familiar. One of the things that we're introducing with PWA and Headless in general is the idea of these componentized and portable experiences. Experiences don't necessarily have to be an all or nothing proposition. There's a lot of ways to get started with this. And this TiVo example is a great one. And it was done using AEM, and Dantius is the partner, and launched within 4 months. And so we talked about this recently in a webinar. But again, when you think about this and you think about the full potential, it can be done at the component level as well. And this is one of several examples that are live today at TiVo.com. So in the future, key experiences like product recommendations, which we've talked a lot about recently, and Adobe Substance, and just generally 3D, AR, VR in general will be available for Vennya, giving us both intelligent commerce, but also these capabilities in the core platform. Now, much of this is very much in development today. Development for product recommendations with PWA support is in process, and we're hoping to see more of that later this year. And Elena has got a session later today where she's going to announce the kicking off of a 3D project with the community itself, and to get this off the ground relative to, again, adding 3D products, AR and VR, for both Vennya and the Luma storefronts. And so we're pretty excited about this, and we look forward to sharing more of that with you in the future. So checkout itself can be headless, though. If you think about your checkout and payment experience, there's a lot that can be done with the payment request API. When you think about payment requests, it's really about web payments. It's about a standard experience that sits within your device, whether it be mobile or desktop. We continue to work on the Magento community to improve support for these types of platforms, and we're looking to expand the support for both Apple and Google, but also add a few more payment providers, and then continue integrating our GraphQL coverage. So look for more updates on this throughout the year. We're encouraged to get this out the doors as quickly as we can. So what about merchants? So if you didn't hear already, Page Builder and PWA were introduced back in Magento 2.3.4 in January, giving merchants the ability to make page-level content changes to their store. Our approach to Headless does include content and authoring, which is pretty unique, and it's done so at point of need, which will evolve over time. Mobile is a big area of focus with Page Builder, not just with PWA, and is planned for the second half of this year. And Elena is also, again, going to be talking about that quite a bit today as well. So lastly, what about designers? Again, this is just a concept that's not in development yet, but what if we started to introduce this idea of Headless and PWA to designers? One of the interesting things about now being part of the Adobe family is that there are a lot of great designer tools that, for instance, can export React-based components and start to bring together some of our worlds in a very interesting way. And so we're hopeful to start getting more work with the creative communities, but also our development communities, to start putting together some prototyping, some early proofs of concept, and again, starting to think about what workflows might mean at this level. And this can only be done with our newer platforms, right? And so we're pretty excited about this, and this idea of workflows really starting off with the agency and the designer that inevitably could just be turned into code and then reused at some point in time. All right, so let's start talking about our roadmap a bit. Again, you'll find that headless commerce is one of several major themes that we're going to be delivering as a GA release in August. So here are the key themes. One of the biggest ones is B2B. For those who haven't followed yet, it's been a while since we've done some material work in the B2B space. And so Mark Brenton and team are doing a great job, again, with the help of the community, to bring together some major improvements around order approvals and also login as customer that's been long awaited. And so that also will then support B2B, but also B2C as well. Headless commerce, of course, is going to get extended support. We're going to have near complete coverage of GraphQL, and we're going to have a substantial amount of work around the componentry and progress around the Vennya quote-unquote refresh, which you can already see in the development branch today. Intelligent commerce updates by way of product recommendations are already available for Page Builder today. It's just going to be timed with a 2.4 release, but it's released independently. And then more power for merchants to create great shopping experiences using Adobe Stock 2.0, but it's also going to give us a brand new media gallery as well, but then introduce new capabilities like in-store pickup, again, by way of the community, that enhances MSI and our inventory capabilities, and then brings them to store in a very timely manner. And then last but not least, our goal with 2.4 is that it's the most secure, most highly performant release to date, with key upgrades to technologies like MySQL, Elasticsearch, and of course PHP 7.4, which will be key parts of the release itself. So getting a little bit deeper into Headless, and so our GraphQL and PWA strategy. So as I mentioned earlier, the work that we're doing really is developed with itself. If you follow all the way back to the beginnings of PWA Studio, we had a very hybrid solution, and ultimately we have a goal of going fully GraphQL with the latest coverage that, again, will be near complete with 2.4. And as you can see, as we started with 2.3, we're exactly where we want to be. We're exactly where we need to be with both, again, the Vennya reference storefront, but also the components itself. And so, again, the goal is to get B2C done first, again, in a very iterative fashion that you've probably seen and followed over time, and then fast follow into B2B. And we're actually encouraged that we're going to be able to accelerate even more with anything remaining after 2.4 with the help from the community. And Ashant and team have been working extremely hard on getting that done. So here's a really good example. So I mentioned a few minutes ago about in-store pickup with Magento 2.4. What makes this really great is not only is it timed with some of the market needs that we're seeing today, it's also created for the community, and it also, from our standpoint, starts to deliver in a model that we want to see more and more of in the future, which is GraphQL from the very beginning. So you'll see this particular feature in this release not only deliver an example, so a headful solution in this case for in-store pickup, but also a headless option where you can, essentially manipulate and create your own experience based on this as well. We think this is going to solve a lot of different challenges that we're seeing today in the market. This idea of, again, in-store pickup, using and creating sources as stores and locations, and creating the opportunity for pickup during these at checkout. And so we're pretty excited about this, again, not only in what we're doing, but how we're doing this, where our releases and our features will continue to be GraphQL and PWA first. So the roadmap itself for GraphQL and PWA Studio continues to evolve. We make this widely available, and again, we cover it pretty regularly in our community calls on Fridays with both Andrew and Nishant as well. But if you look at it today, this is very much what we just shared before. The idea is that we're going to build everything on GraphQL first. As GraphQL has made itself available, we then build the components and the reference storefront to date. The key takeaway from this one, again, is B2C first, B2B second, and then ultimately, there's nothing that should be holding you up from what's needed to be built today. We've got a lot of great examples. Again, we've got 10 that we know of to date. There's probably others that are out there as well that are fearlessly moving ahead of schedule. And what's really been nice about that, and probably likely for a separate talk, is the developer experience. And so the idea of that being so much easier to use that it's actually not terribly difficult to do GraphQL extensions and GraphQL endpoints and really start to think about extending not only the API itself, but also the components and also the reference storefront as well in a way that we haven't done before. So I encourage you to again, take a look at what we've done, follow our roadmap, check in with us from time to time within the community to see what the latest is on this. And again, this is our roadmap, our headless roadmap that, again, includes both GraphQL and PWA Studio itself. So there are a lot of resources to date that I mentioned. I encourage you to take a look at this. This is a QR code for the 2.4 release, including some of the release notes. We are always out there. We're always available when it comes down to this. And so headless commerce can be seen in terms of an overview itself, some of the work that's also being done in GraphQL. And then PWA Studio, you've probably seen a lot of our work to date on that. We have a great set of tutorials that were recently released. If you haven't seen those in a while, with the help from the community and our DevDocs teams, and some free training that also, again, was contributed by several of our leaders in the Magento space. That's worth taking a look at if you're interested in getting started. And again, last but not least, is Magento 2.4. That Magento 2.4 is coming in August. It's our first minor release in almost 18 months, and so really excited about that. The team is on track, working regularly with that, and Headless is a big part of that. And again, we're really excited to not only bring this to you, but really start to see what you can do from an experience standpoint. And so, as always, we continue to listen, and we encourage you to ask questions. So thank you so much for your time. Again, remember to be excellent to each other, and enjoy the rest of Meet Magento UK.
Thanks so much, Eric. Absolute great session. No, it was a busy one, so thank you for taking the time at the ungodly hour. Someone did ask on the chat if you've actually been to bed, so there you go.
I took a nap.
He took a nap. Okay, great. So I've got a couple of questions. So what would you say to people who are looking at Magento, PWA, and View Storefront? How would you choose?
Yeah, it's a tough question, right? We've seen some really good examples from the View Storefront team to date. They in many ways have led some of the charge around it, and I think it really comes down to the merchant and customer needs. Very much it's a technology choice, right? And so if you're tied to View, that kind of puts you in one certain direction. The other part too is the marketplace itself, and so we take a lot of great care when we think about customization. And so a big part of what we're doing this year is going to be around the marketplace. And so again, we've got a handful of extensions that are available individually right now. When we start to introduce these more as part of the marketplace, I think that makes for a really, a much more compelling solution for our merchants who are not having to find everything themselves and And again, View Storefront's done a nice job, but from what I understand, a lot of that can be somewhat custom. But in general, it's a it's a fine third-party offering. But I think like anything else, there are going to be trade-offs when it comes to it. And I think I'm only more encouraged by a lot of the work that we're starting to see in the roadmap as we bring some of our products together, especially the ability to make changes by way of Page Builder, some of the great work that we're seeing by way of the Creative Cloud integrations to date that I think are pretty unique to what we're offering as well. But yeah, it's a solid solution. But again, I think there are definitely some key differences there.
Okay, thank you. A question around, I think on one of your slides around the line of the rates, what do the lines represent? Was it top versus bottom? Someone's just looking for a bit of clarity if possible.
I'm sorry, the line of the rates?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember which one that was. Sorry about that. The rates. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you explain which rates these were?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to Willem. If you can be more specific, I'll get the question for you because I've just put which lines. So I'll come back to that one, top versus bottom. And I've just asked about the lines. Give me 1 second. Let's have a look.
Sure. Yeah, if you could expand on that, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, I'll get him to be more specific. I'll come back to that one, Willem. Give me 1 second. Just having a look through. It's a very busy one today, so I'm just trying to adopt questions.
Yep. And we're also happy to answer questions afterwards as well. I'll make myself available here. I'll be at the conference for the next couple hours. I napped up, so I'm good. And then, of course, if anything's needed, I'll be online. So we pride ourselves in making yourselves available for any and all questions. So
we've got another minute here or so. So I've got another one which is similar to the question I've already asked. But how do you compare PWA Studio to Scandi PWA? I don't know if that's the same answer as View, but I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, it's similar and different. From what I understand with Scandi PWA, again, they've done some nice work as well. I've seen some good examples that are high performant and some really good, I think some case studies there. I think from my understanding, Scandi PWA acts as though is more of a theme, right? And so what we're doing is a bit more fundamental. And again, they are both React-based, which is good. But again, as you look at what we're trying to do, I think we're encouraged by a lot of the work that we're doing for the merchant around content and authoring that make things like page changes and others a bit easier that you don't necessarily see. And so by kind of our point of view is if that's something that is of needed from your standpoint, I think that's something that's helpful. I mean, I think there will be third-party solutions that will make that easier for Scandi PWA and others. But in general, again, similar technology, it operates a bit more as a theme versus kind of a full storefront. But I think if there is there may be, depending on your particular business needs, you might that may be a solution for you as kind of a third-party solution.
Wonderful, thank you. Right, so back to the line question, I've got more clarity. So GraphQL features per quarter, columned per quarter, top to bottom. So just understanding a bit more of what that meant in terms of timelines, or what do those lines mean?
Got it. So that line, So the top line itself is GraphQL. So probably need a label there, and then the bottom line is PWA. And so again, the top line has a lot to do with building up the key capabilities of the basic checkout and shopping experience. We will start to add, and you'll start to see some of the work around My Account, and a lot of the work itself. So come next. And a lot of the work itself, for better for worse, has to be tied to Magento proper releases. And so Nishant and team are putting in quite a bit of work. They already have with 2.3.4, 2.3.5, but with 2.4, we've got a handful of updates there. And then we've got quite a bit also planned for 2.4.1 later this year. So that'll encompass the majority of the work that's being done there in terms of our completion. And then below that is the work around PWA Studio. So again, Studio is a set of development tools. It's related Paragon components, but also the Vennya storefront. And so we basically fast follow the minute something is created from GraphQL, and then work that into the designs and the work we already have on Vennya, the components, et cetera. So it's very much a fast follow philosophy, but even though the work is somewhat independent, they are timed with Magento releases, so roughly every quarter or so.
Okay, I've got a question here. Is what's the deadlines for having Vennya Storefront features complete?
This year. So this year, if not sooner. Yep. we get that question all the time. There's nothing that's holding you back from using it to date. If you look at it as a set of components and a reference, again, we've seen some great examples. But if that is a major consideration for you, that'll be done this year. And there's a lot you can work with to date. The big area that we're working on right now is around My Account. So that's next. And so once you have that, that'll give you really what I would consider the must-haves that again can be done yourself to date. But if you're looking for more of a turnkey solution, that'll be done here in the next quarter or so.
Okay, thank you. We've got a few more minutes, and I've got another question. Sorry, just to ask. So, when will multi-website features support be available for PWA Studio?
So right now, I'm looking at that being the back half of this year. I do want to double check with the engineering team on the latest for that. We've actually had we've doubled teams internally, so a little bit of insider baseball on that one. So we're hoping to accelerate that a bit more, and I'd love to get you a better date for that. And so the goal would be the back half of this year, if not sooner.
Okay, wonderful. Right, well, we must wrap up to keep to time. We've got a tight schedule for today. Thanks so much again for a wonderful session. I know everyone's enjoyed it. I can see from the chat, so thanks very much, Eric. We now have a 5-minute changeover for everyone on the line. You can stay with us for Ray Bogman's session, or you have time to join another track, which will be starting at 11:35. Thanks so much.